into a very cohesive lineup that I like from both players. The ban priest strategy is something I've been thinking about a lot, with Mage obviously falling in dominance very heavily since last week. And whether you're going with the Rogue, which I think is not a good matchup against Priest, as Alan is doing, or the OTK Demon Hunter, which obviously is a dreadful matchup for the most part against Priest. I like the strategy from both of these players, and so I expect good things from them. But right out the gate here, I'm seeing for blitzchung a hand that makes quite a lot of sense. It's painting a pretty picture already without even throwing away any cards.
This hand is insane, especially when they're only running one pen flinger. It's like not easy for Paladin to clear a single 1/1. Like they need to have the sword, and even if they do have the sword, if you're going off on turn 1, very often they are not going to clear more than one minion. And I agree with blitzchung's mulligan. That's Soul of the Forest. While you would like to have that to top everything off, it very much feels like this Gibberling hand is also going to play Innervate turn 1, which means the Soul is not going to come online for a very long time. blitzchung just wants to double down on the Gibberling synergy that he can get right away.
And Alan's mulligan makes a lot of sense as well. Just keeping the Sword of the Fallen as the one good card. Getting double Libram and a secret, though, at the start sounds disastrous, though, I have to say.
Yeah. Okay, but this Oh My God could be disastrous too. Backstab is the one that changes the entire game. That's
a flurry. That's not going to be doing anything. Okay. It doesn't even bother showing you the animation if it doesn't do anything on the board.
Alan also just snap played the Oh My God on turn 1. I think he understood from the 3 keep of blitzchung that that might be his only way to stay in the game, even before having seen the abysmal draws of double Libram of Hope.
To be fair, this isn't going as bad as I expected it to for Alan. He gets to kill off the Gibberling with Spell Burst. The Thorngrowth Sentry's follow-up is annoying, but it's not much more than that, especially if the second Oh My God is pulled out.
True, and this becomes... Alright. This did show an animation, even though it also did literally nothing. Well...
The fact that I'm
doing nothing till turn 5, great.
This matchup is so weird, like, because the instinct is definitely that Druid should just be miles in the lead. They got a nutty start here. Alan has about the worst hand that you can possibly draw, and he still doesn't feel that far behind, to be honest. I think he could turn this one around if he's able to survive till Aldor double Libram.
Yeah, that's true. Looking at blitzchung's hand, it certainly does look like he's not doing anything till turn 4 either. But in terms of top deck quality, it's not as though Druid doesn't have good single draws. There's a reason they run so much card draw. It's so that they can become, or they can be consistent in rebuilding boards when they do get the first Gibberlings answered. So if blitzchung hits a single Fungal Fortunes or Guess the Weight, or even to an extent Nature Studies, I think it's still going to be really tough for Alan here.
That is not it. However, he knows that obviously both of these secrets aren't going to do anything, because I think it's actually just one Avenge, one Galloping Savior left in the list for Alan. He's running a very secret light build, which makes sense given the fewer amount of charges on Sword of the Fallen. But again, just a slow build here for blitzchung. He's looking for any card draw. He's looking for Pride's Fury, Arbor Up, many, many good draws. And there are many good draws for Alan as well. He's just missed literally every one of them. This is a disaster.
Unbelievable. More than half of what's left in his deck is 4 mana or less. It's literally only 5 cards left in his deck that cost more than 4 mana. This is unbelievably unlucky. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I mean... It's at least one that you can go on Discord afterwards and have all your friends tell you that you're just unlucky, which is always a solace.
Oh man, and this just became worse for Alan. Yes, it procs a Galloping Savior if it's there, but are you really gonna give up double Soul of the Forest this turn?
There's no
you just create more stats if there's a Galloping Savior on board. You just throw everything into it, and then you end with 6 2/2s.
That's actually funny. Like, I was wondering if there's any way you can get lunar eclipse at the end to target the horse, but I think you just take your very good turn and move on with your life.
Sounds good to me.
But even then, even with all of this factored in, Alan isn't necessarily losing. He can go taunt into taunt into taunt into taunt into Alex Straza. Like, that is a hand that can just win the matchup.
I mean, I agree, because this play from blitzchung was the more patient one, and that's why I was advocating for getting all the 2/2s, barring that not being Avenge, of course. But even if it were Avenge, you would have the double Soul of the Forest online, and that would eventually give you more stats if this was going to be the board from Alan.
Yeah.
I don't know what blitzchung is holding the Lunar Solar for, because if you get a single card draw at this point, even if it's not Solar card draw, I think you're in a good spot.
I guess just saving it as well for not only the card draw, but just an actual buff, like a stat buff, rather than giving the death rattle as well. Like, if you imagine if you'd got Arbor up here, the game would have just ended on the spot.
Fair. And now I do think this is going to be Lunar Solar Power. Solar Power, lol. So you'd have to think about the ideal way to end with the most gain stats. And I think it would mean trading 1 Gibber and 1/1/1 and then buffing the Treants, but if blitzchung is not planning to go for Solar in the first place, he's just not letting the Galloping Savior go off, then I am also okay with this line. Is Alan winning?
He's just kind of winning!
I don't know how, but Libram of Hope is just nuts next turn.
He just did nothing for 5 turns this game, and then won.
Jack of all trades, master of Paladin. My bad, not priest.
I wonder at what point, when you've listed all the classes that Alan is good at, you will finally just say Jack of all trades and master of all of them as well.
Maybe another 2 weeks in GM. Derek, give it some time. I need to build up the narrative.
This is just the power of Alan. This is how he deceives you. He gives you hope, the ultimate crushing defeat. He lets you think you've drawn the nuts against him, but secretly his garbage hand was the nuts all along.
But to be completely realistic, blitzchung had a window to build way more threat on board than he actually did.
Well,
we can see that the secret that was pulled was Avenge and not Galloping Savior. So he wouldn't have gotten all the 2/2s immediately, but say against the next board of the Aldor, he could have ended with a lot more board presence. And I don't know, even though it would really gut a lot of his top decks like Glowfly Swarm, I find that when I play Token Druid, I'm all in if that's what my current hand tells me to do.
I mean, realistically, I see actually 2 opportunities here where blitzchung could have turned this around. Absolutely, the turn that you were talking about was a big decision point. But turn 1, I actually think was something that I didn't even talk about at the time because it was moving so quickly. But going for the turn 1 Gibberling was something that I don't necessarily agree with, because he could instead have gotten down the Gibberling plus the Thorngrowth Sentries, on turn 2, right? It could have been Gibberling, Coin, Innovate, Thorngrowth Sentries, which puts a lot of stuff on stats on the board, protects the Gibberling against the sword, most importantly, because even though they've only kept 1 card in hand, it's not especially likely that they have Sword of the Fallen. The fact that it was able to just swing and take out the Gibberling there just decimated his entire game plan, and I think for me, that's actually the more crucial moment where he could have, aside from exactly a one-of Penflinger to snipe off the Gibberling, he could have more likely stuck it around and keep generating boards.
That's very fair, and you can make that decision if you see that Paladin doesn't play any turn 1 minion on
Exactly,
board. So we're thinking about, there was also questions about how badly you're supposed to play into, oh my god, I mean, it wasn't bad after all, because the only bad outcome was backstab, but I think maybe the thing holding back blitzchung from possibly waiting a bit longer is that if there's sword for 2 swings, then your Gibberling turn also can proc Galloping Savior. It's a bit hard though, because you didn't see the sword until later on. It's a lot of ifs, and I hate that when we have to cast Token Druid, everything is theoretical, it feels like, because it feels so all or nothing. But we are back now from the disconnect, and we can see Alan go for what is still a pretty good Penflinger here. And another Libram of Hope.
It looks like an incredibly clean turn of just Penflinger, Libram of Hope, heal up your own minion after bumping a value trade.
Yeah. Maybe Justice is even safer, just clearing all their board. It's not like you're unsafe at 15. I kind of like that. So, Flinger's in a state where I don't mind leaving it on the board these days. After it clears this board, I think Alan is not pressed to keep it in his hand. Certainly, this is very powerful too. I didn't notice blitzchung's at 15. My bad. This just sets up lethal unless blitzchung takes a very ugly trade.
Yeah, I mean, I did like healing up the minion there instead, because that basically like makes it even more likely and you're never going to die. But the point is, you set up lethal, you clear the board, and Alan, imagine needing a card in your hand that costs less than 5 to beat Token Druid. Like, obviously you got the sword, and in the end it turned out that the Oh My Yogs were pretty impactful as well, but poof, disgusting.
That was such a weird game.
It was.
Just terrible draws for Alan turned out to be all he needed, and blitzchung had what looked like the nut start, but it just wasn't. It just goes to show that even if Token Druid hits a great Gibberling combo at the beginning, it doesn't take very much for the other decks to remove it unless they keep drawing Fungal Fortunes, Guess the Weight, that type of thing.
And I mean, the other thing obviously to mention is just how disgusting Oh My Yog is in the matchup. Even if it just gets rid of a coin, it's so backbreaking because you just have so much less opportunity. Because who knows, like if it wasn't Oh My Yog, he probably was leading up to just going for a turn 1 play of Thorngrowth Sentries there in addition to the Gibberling. It was just because it was exactly Oh My Yog. But even then it was a 50-50 chance, so if you do it on turn 2, maybe you have a higher chance to go about it. Maybe I'm being overly critical on blitzchung and he did just have the strategy I was setting out right from the get-go. A difficult matchup, and again, as you said, it's always theoretical as Token Druid because you're working with imperfect information against the Paladin.
Very true, but in the grand scheme of things, it does mean that Alan gets the win with the deck that nobody else in APAC thought to bring. Just a deck from last week that got nerfed, and he still had, you know, a lot of the old cards. He just tweaked it. 1 less Penflinger, 1 less Secret, and a bit more top end. And he still is not running Cariel, even with the Liberum Judgment. Maybe we just have to hold the L on that, Derek. I don't know.
Never. Cariel is love and life. I'll stand by her forever. But now the Demon Hunter for blitzchung, the OTK Demon Hunter, which we've seen obviously a little bit less of, given that a lot of players have been switching over to the kind of tempo variant, the mid-range variant that runs the Illidari Inquisitors at the end, but it's still just OTK Demon Hunter. It's still an oppressively powerful deck in the right hands, even if it lost some of the nice removal cards in the shuffle up to core set.
Yes, and I think blitzchung showed very great understanding of how to play the deck yesterday. He didn't run up into a particularly tough matchup, but I feel like we might be doing blitzchung a bit of a disservice by always saying, oh, he's an aggro player, it's in his battle tag, he loves these curved decks, and he can find great ways to race for lethal. But in terms of lineup building from season to season, blitzchung has shown a lot of diversity in how he likes to pick decks. We had him play a ton of Priest last season, if I recall, and now there's blitzchung bringing a bona fide combo deck, the opposite of an aggro deck, if you will, and piloting it to maximum efficiency.
Gia, I could not disagree more. We're not showing disrespect to blitzchung, you're showing disrespect to OTK Demon Hunter. Imagine not calling it an aggro deck. It's the most aggressive deck in the game. You just kill your opponent on like turn 6 every time, it feels like. None of this combo nonsense. It's an aggro deck, straight up, and that is why blitzchung is playing it. I won't hear anything to the other ones.
I didn't think I'd get to be on hot takes today, but it was a surprise. And if I'm not going to hold the L on Cariel, I will certainly hold the L on this one. Sorry, OTK Demon Hunter. Of course, you and blitzchung are a match made in heaven.
Apology not accepted, but we'll move on. Alan 1-0 up here and trying to take the win with the Rogue now up against the Demon Hunter. And while we've seen it against some of the other archetypes, like obviously the infamous match already with Tiz using the Glide against the Priest in his Demon Hunter, which was absolutely sick.
That was Give Please, right?
Oh, Give Please, sorry. Yeah, I think I might be getting confused. But for Alan now, on the Rogue, how do you feel about this matchup? Because as much as I like Rogue at the moment, I kind of feel like I'm a bit down on a lot of its matchups.
Right, I don't feel like this is a particularly good one for Rogue, especially with the nerf to Jandice. It has often felt like the way to beat Demon Hunter was to play singular large minions. That's the shape that they can't just Immolation Aura away. They often have to expend a combo piece, say Moarg, to get the I-Beam to a large enough damage that it can clear the minion quickly. And that's when Demon Hunter really struggles to partition their resources. But by virtue of just how Rogue is built, it has a bunch of these small minions that get played very efficiently, but they fall prey to Immolation Aura and that type of thing. So the Rogue, I feel, needs to get to a very, very quick start. Mancrick is the nice type of minion. Even Firebrand just as a 3-mana 3/4. That's the type of curve you want to have to try and beat Demon Hunter, and hopefully the Wicked Stabs can get there.
Is it do you need to get to such an aggressive start that you tempo out Foxy Fraud instead of playing the Octobot here? I was pretty surprised by that, to be honest.
Not gonna lie, me too. But maybe Alan is just thinking that more damage right now is the way to go. It feels awkward because he is playing Swindle, of course. If you are playing Foxy Fraud, that's pretty much the best thing you can get with it. But maybe he's also just thinking about holding the Octobot for a bigger guaranteed activation. He is running Alex, so that's a combo you can think about, of course, with Tenmu.
Right, that was going to be my next question is, do you ever consider the combo in this matchup against such an aggressive aggro deck? I don't think you're ever really going to get time to do the full Alex Tenwu combo.
True. The most aggressive of all aggro decks. OTK Demon Hunter.
Of OTK Demon Hunter Gaming.
Indeed. Well, this is a strong start for Alan, all things considered, because it's, again, of the shape where Immolation Aura on its own doesn't get much done, and even Blood Mage Immolation is just 3 damage AoE. So blitzchung already hovering the Talented Arcanist, thinking about whether it's worth it to use Immolation like that. It's not, again, it's not wrecking his combo. OTK Demon Hunter has always run some form of redundancy. Blitzchung is running the one Arcanist list, but Rogue is a deck that can't heal very often, so you don't necessarily even need to hold on to, say, 36 damage. You can go for 24, and that's often enough.
Whatever it is, I'm a big fan of the clear on this turn in one form or another, because my thinking was, Jandice isn't going to come down next turn because of the nerf up to 6, so it's not like you're going to have to just clear again next turn. And so we could have gone for the clear this turn with, say, Arcanist Immolation, or if you don't want to get too fancy about it. Next turn, you have Illidari Studies and potentially Coin Skull alongside that to get it down on turn 6. And it's not likely that he was going to face another big threatening board on that turn. So I was actually a bit more in favor of killing the board this turn and then drawing next turn instead.
I agree. That would have been my first instinct as well, but wow, this is starting to come together for Alan. Very early, Mancrick consumed by Hatred. That's a card that Demon Hunter has to accept is just not going away until the game ends one way or another. Too much health on that. But for Alan, this certainly feels like a Secret Passage turn. The rest of his hand is just not doing very much. Just have to think about whether you want to, say, Shadow Step something first or Foxy Fraud first.
I am kind of looking at Step Mancrick to start off the turn. Like, if I have to play a 3-mana Enraged Mancrick or for the Secret Passage, I'm very happy about that. Another 3/10 with charge for 3 mana, absolutely. That's the kind of pressure I want to start applying.
Sure. I mean, if he really wants to go all in and say that that very slow turn from Blitzchung last turn indicates a lack of removal in hand, we could just see him dump all the minions, even if you take a very lackluster Octobot discount. You could say even just hold the Foxy Fraud on 1 mana and go Octobot, Prize Plunder the Octobot Dagger Face, and then next turn you have 1 mana Foxy Fraud into Secret Passage for free.
Interesting. Coming to the conclusion that
We'll hold.
This is just enough. Like, blitzchung does have to answer this now in one form or another, and if they're going to be able to clear off what's on board, it's probably going to come in the form of Immolation Aura, so it's unlikely that anything else sticks.
True. If Alan was expecting Immolation, then the board I was suggesting would get caught in the crossfire anyway. What's truly scary for Alan here is Fell Scream, and it kind of needs to be that for blitzchung because it's unbelievable how much damage Alan put together just off of these few attack minions. So blitzchung does have the immolation, the fell scream rather, with 3 spell damage if he likes. So that deals with the 2 4 health minions. Or with Moarg, you heal even more. Probably worth.
Yeah. It's disassembling the combo, but I think it's one of those matchups where you just don't really need the full ultimate combo.
Right.
Like, just creeping over to 32 damage is enough.
Looks like blitzchung is going to go for the 6 healing each on these, so 18 back up to the full 30. That's why he swung first.
Yeah.
Nicely optimized. It's not a full clear on the Mancrick, but that's all right. He has card draw for next turn. And we move on to phase 2 now for both players. blitzchung looks for the replenishment of his combo pieces, and Alan looks for a way to build the board again.
So the actual Enraged Mancrick token costs 5 though, right? It doesn't cost 3. So
Right.
shadow stepping it and replaying it here, I mean, like, it gets you 9 health. It's a very hard minion to remove, but it's a lot of the turn just used up at that point.
Yeah, Shadow Step, not to mention, is very valuable, and he also wants to get rid of this Moarg big time, I would have to imagine.
Yeah, sure.
Problem is, best way to get rid of the Moarg without using the Mancrick is Prize Plunder, but to really play enough cards, you would want to Secret Passage first.
He's actually doing it though, just relying on having a big minion presence. Again, if he was going to go for the Secret Passage, now the key turn to do it really is 7, so that you still have the opportunity to play Jandis off of it if you want to put maximum development on the board. So again, holding off for 1 more turn here does make sense here for Alan. And even with the Foxy Fraud, he's able to clear off the Moarg as well, so it's just a pretty clean setup turn. I like this a lot.
Yeah, me as well. Oh, a bit confused by usage of Dagger because it feels like he's never going to Dagger up next turn if you're going to Passage, but everything else I thought was super clean, and looking at it in the context of the previous turn, holding back all the minions, he scrounged together another board that would not have necessarily been there if he played it all on 1 turn.
And Skull in the right-hand position, like, it's at that point where maybe you'll be able to play it next turn if you get a good 1-mana or 2-mana card that you can just play out. It's possible, but quite likely that that is just trapped now for the rest of the game.
True. And for Alan, this is going to have to be the, 1 in 5 to hit Jandis, 20 cards left in the deck.
Yeah.
That's really not great odds, is it? Ooh, Ogremancer though. Oh, Kazakus too.
I think you probably just end up on Kazakus Octobot, right? Yeah. Although Octobot doesn't do anything with your hand. You don't have enough cards there.
Yeah, there's just not enough. That's why the Kazakus... I mean, Ogremancer always looks good against Demon Hunter. It's so problematic to deal with. But thinking about what's left in Alan's hand, I veered over a bit to Kazakus trying to hit card draw. But in the end, Alan is valuing the disruption he gets from the Ogremancer.
And Ilgi is truly the last card that you wanted to see here. That truly keeps the Skull utterly locked for the rest of the game from Outcast, and it's going to have to be a pretty scrappy win condition now, because it's unlikely he gets any of his win conditions actually reduced in cost from here on in. The
decent news for blitzchung here is that if he wants to play spells, he can just end the turn with Immolation Aura, so that would... Oh, Skull, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, this looks really good now. So you can coin Skull and go for Immolation Aura. If he didn't discover that, I was going to say it's not like the cards he was going to play are very good. Foul knows to help cycle, but it's really slow. But now he gets to have best of both worlds.
No combo pieces found, though. Again, like, 0-mana Chaos Strike can be +4 damage when combined with Eldraki and Il'gynoth. So that's, like, it's extra damage, but it's not one of those combo pieces to actually get his win con online quicker.
Yeah. And if he had 1 more mana to play with for the hero power, I was looking heavily at, say, Chaos Strike and then Immolation, and then you can get rid of the Ogremancer. It was just a little bit short as it happened. And so blitzchung is holding on to the Immolation altogether. I think this is very smart because he still has to play spells next turn, 100%. So you would rather have held on to the Immolation to then deal with whatever you get off the Ogremancer this turn again.
Well, that's a Kazakus golem, though. Yeah. Slam that, picking, I guess, 5. I don't think you're in a position where you can pick 10 in this matchup, even if you're low on value.
Oh, it's so tempting though, Derek.
You want to go
10
10?
stealth? It's tempting. Oh, I mean, Alan's just not playing it. I think he's going 10 if he's not playing it. Or he'll evaluate the board this turn, rather. If anything sticks, you go for 5, try to get the +2/+2. But realistically, blitzchung's going to clear this. He's dying. And if he does, you kind of take the 10, don't you?
Maybe. Like, my instincts is saying he wanted to fit the dagger in on this turn, and as you said, have more information for which golem he picked. Because going into 9 mana, it's probably just Kazakus and then look for stealth and copy.
Right. And Alan still has a very annoying board. The health on the Mankrik and the Ogremancer, tough to deal with, but blitzchung now has 2 Moargs. He can Raging Fell Screamer this turn, so I imagine this is just going to be the full setup and end with Immolation Aura. And also Swing, because he's at a scary health total.
Yep.
So, Kazakus gets cheapened. You can go take a 5 and immediately play the Wicked Stab. I don't think there's enough burst to get there, is there?
Oh, imagine if he'd picked 10 last turn though and had it reduced by the Octobot. He could have just slammed it down on this turn. It would be so sick. Maybe that was just the play.
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think blitzchung would have... blitzchung might have found a way to deal with the Octobot differently if Alan had played the Kazakus.
Let me dream, okay? Let me dream.
Okay. Does he take the 10? I think you take the 10 here. I don't think 5 is good enough. And then you just try to fill out your mana with the Wand Thief for this turn.
Oh, I took 5.
Okay.
Honestly, I wasn't even reading the first options. I was just too excited to see whether he'd picked 5 or 10 on the second option.
Me too.
But yeah, getting stats online right now does, at the very least, potentially give him some extra burst damage, right? Divine Shield, Stealth being the big ones.
So it's got to be copy this. Even if he didn't get one of the best keywords to begin with, the copy is just doing way more than the rest because Brain Freeze already clears the Moarg. He doesn't need the damage. And then giving the Octobot +2/+2 is not very good. Like, yes, it buffs Kazakus too, but he's only really pushing 2 more this turn.
Yeah, the +2/+2 was interesting, but as you say, it just adds more attack in the end, more likely, more sticky attack by going for this method. And in any reasonable game, most of the time here, I think Alan would just be dead at this point. But blitzchung still hasn't reduced the cost of any of his cards. He's getting close, but he needs 1 more turn at least of setup.
And Alan also very smartly put the 2 Divine Shield Golems in the middle. Just a bit of optimization for Fellscream Blast positioning.
True.
Very nice. And the Skull is still too expensive to play in Outcast position at the moment. So if blitzchung gives up 1 more Moarg, let me just pull up the rest of his deck here. He still has 1 Talented Arcanist, and so these are his last Moargs.
Right, and so he really can't afford to give them up now. It's just about how he gets over the finish line, because now if he has Il'gynoth, Moarg, Spectral, Orc Merchant plus I-Beam, that's 16 damage, 20 with the weapon swing as well. Which is not good enough. He needs a little bit extra here. He needs to find the Talented Arcanist, he needs to reduce the cost, he needs Fellscream Blast as well. But because he can't play the Raging Fellscreamer as well here, it's going to require another turn of setup. So Alan has 1 turn here and maybe another one afterwards to try and sneak the win.
Right.
Which...
Big deal that blitzchung I-beamed though.
I mean, we're potentially just looking at lethal right now. He's got 11 damage on board, 12 from the Wicked Stabs. Could just close this one out.
That's absolutely what you go for here. If blitzchung is going for Skull with no discounts, you kind of assume that he has the setup for next turn. And so he's going for the Wicked Stab.
You look for Fireball, Mask of Cthulhu, and then if you don't find that, your Secret Passage.
Right.
Load of garbage, whatever, move on.
Yeah. Don't even bother with this mana to spend. You just want to have all the mana off of Secret Passage. Another Wand Thief. Tenwu? But he can Tenwu one thief? Does he have mana to do anything at that point?
Arcane Intellect, you have to go AI to find the Wicked Stab. I think that's by far his best chance of winning. It needs to be now.
But even if he gets it, that's only 17.
Oh, he wouldn't have the dagger. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, it's too hard. Too difficult. Okay, but for blitzchung, it's 50-50 to hit Talented Arcanist right now, and that's the difference maker, right? Because on 10 mana, he can go Ilgi, Moarg, Arcanist, Og Merchant, and Scream Blast. So, oh my gosh, how much is that? It is 4 damage on each of the, and then 8, so it's 24? So it's not even lethal yet?
And look at this positioning as well from Alan. This is absolutely beautiful. The way that this has worked out. The Fell Screen Blast, it can only target 2 things maximum if you target one of the Divine Shields.
Right. And if he targets his own minions, then the board becomes a problem.
Yeah.
If I'm counting this right, this is 28 for blitzchung maximum. I think blitzchung might be locked out of this. He doesn't have any other clear aside from the Fell Screen Blast to begin with. And if he uses that, then he doesn't have a win condition. Let's check the math again. Ilganoth.
24, yeah.
Yeah.
I count 8 as...
plus the Eldraki to face 28. It's not there.
He had 1 more mana. He could fit in the hero power for lethal.
This doesn't work. I mean, Alan also just never gave blitzchung time to find a safe Raging Fell Screamer. If he had landed that at any point, this game was 100% over. Derek, I don't think this is an aggro deck.
Mate, what a game. That is so tight, the differences that can be made at the end there. Like, I think Alan, that final turn there was absolutely spot on with just trying to find the damage, draw through your deck. Positioning so crucial there. I don't think it would have actually mattered in the end, but very possibly could have. It's really the last couple of turns for blitzchung where, like, he played Skull instead of going for the Fell Screamer, whereas he could have just gone for the draw of hoping Arcanist comes off the top in order to find lethal. Or just by playing the Fell Screamer so that he had enough mana to get everything on board as well. We're looking back at, like, playing out 0-cost Chaos Strikes earlier that maybe could have been saved. So many minute differences that I'm sure many players that are fans of Demon Hunter could find a lot of ways to turn it around.
And I'm going to go ahead and say I think the positioning at the end did matter, not for blitzchung's immediate OTK potential, but let's say Alan positioned badly and the 2 5/5s were on the far side. Blitzchung could have then gone for not an OTK, but just the clear on everything but the 5/5s. You build a board and you heal for a bunch. Then you end with Ilganoth, and then you just are kind of winning on board. Maybe winning is, you know, a stretch to say, but it wasn't over then if Alan had not positioned optimally. But he did everything in his power to make blitzchung's life difficult, and with what I believe is not a favorable by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I think that's one where you have to look back to be absolutely sure if blitzchung could have maybe turned it around in those final couple of turns. But for Alan, I just love what I see time after time. I think he understands these matchups so well. And I mean, honestly, I'm not even sure. Like, most players, you can tell when they've put the practice in, when they've done their homework and learnt the matchups because they know all the tricks. Honestly, Alan is one of those players that, I know people get annoyed when I talk about innate skill, but I'll say strong fundamentals that he's built up over the years in Hearthstone. I honestly don't know if this comes from a bunch of reps or just him being good at the technical side of Hearthstone. It's hard to say, probably a mix of both in the end. But it does lead him to being 2-0 up, only needing a win with the Mage now, and he has got 3 shots to do it in the mirror, against the Druid, and against the Demon Hunter as well.
And if I'm going to pick any of these for Mage to struggle, again, I'm going to have to say Demon Hunter. Seems like a favorable in that one. Blitzchung did honestly have some questionable turns. I don't feel confident enough in my own Demon Hunter play to call them strictly wrong, but the turn where there was a lot of draw and no removal at the early game, I think with the Mankrik and what was it? This
Flame
Mage
Waker.
3/4 card? Yeah, that felt kind of strange towards the end there. And I want to play that whole game back in my head because if Blitzchung had found like any turn to play Raging Fell Screamer or any turn to deal an additional 2 damage to face, that was all the difference it took. But we will see once again if he can get this matchup done.
And my first instinct saying here that surely the Demon Hunter should be in a good spot against this one, right? There's very little minion development from the Mage to actually threaten. The burn damage is powerful, of course, from the Mage, but can it really get there in time to kill off the Demon Hunter before, like, turn 6 or 7, maybe 8 when they go for the combo?
It's tough. I will say that if Demon Hunter does clear a board from Mage hardly ever refills, right? They're just completely on the burn game plan there. And the fact that they're not running minions by that point can sometimes be a pain for Demon Hunter if they want to heal. There's a lot of hands that force the Demon Hunter into having to target their own minions with I-Beam and things like that in order to heal back up. So maybe it's not quite as bad for the Mage as I originally put it, especially when blitzchung's hand is not getting the early card draw, and if he wants to get Skull in outcast position, he has to give up 2 potential combo pieces.
And the coin at Arcane Luminary as well is sick with this hand. Confection Cyclone, Arcanologist, plus a Primordial Studies as well to be able to potentially find a slightly more expensive spell damage minion and just throw it on the board for 1 mana.
That's pretty insane.
Whew.
Blitzchung with another slow turn. I think for Alan here, rather than Primordial, he might just be going for a Sugar Elemental right away. And just say, if you don't have the Immolation, I am smacking you down. But now he has an option for yet another Font of Power.
I mean, that could make it so any, 3 cost or cheaper can be played for 1 mana, which is potentially a lot of tempo. Maybe even another Arcane Luminary or a 3 mana Raz. That's...
Hello?
Yeah, it is unlikely to be realized, I will say. I think this is quite likely to just be mopped up by the Arcanist and the Immolation Aura, but it's still pretty cool.
Yes. Is it Arcanist or Aug Merchant here? Oh, sorry, you can't put the spell damage on your own. Yeah, it has to be the Arcanist.
Well, it could be Aug Merchant, right? Because you could go Immolation Aura, Aug Merchant Hero Power just to do it with the ping itself, which is... I mean, it's a good point. The Talented Arcanist is a very valuable resource that you don't just want to throw down.
Yeah, he takes 2 more damage in the long run, but I am still kind of looking at the Arcanist because it feels like you're gonna play both of them from the left if you're playing one of them just to clear up the skull eventually.
True, yeah.
But then again, Blitzchung might be earmarking Arcanist for pairing with Fellscream Blast, for example, if he feels he needs to heal up again. And he did just see the second Font of Power, so it's not as if this is going to be the only board he sees for quite some time. But in the end, Blitzchung is prioritizing, once again, the card draw, trying to set up for a better Immolation, I would have to imagine.
Really interesting the way that Blitzchung plays this. Because obviously one of the first things that you learn while playing OTK Demon Hunter is you can't just kill everything the turn it comes down and hope to win the game. You do have to leave boards in place for a while and then sweep them up with your removal. But he seems to be very, very greedy with his removal spells, like against the Rogue last time, not clearing off the Firebrand and the Mancrick. Here, not wanting to go for Immolation, or as you said, even as it clears up the skull from the left side of his hand.
And the greed didn't quite pay off for him last time, but I'm certainly sensing that holding on to Immolation is more effective in this situation. It's hard to have a read on just what shape of minion Alan generated off of Font of Power, but I remember looking this up for Mullet Over, like the vast majority of Mage minions are 3 mana or less at the moment. Netherwind is the setup for Alan, so he is committing to not building a board that gets swept up by Immolation Aura. You are almost certain that the Netherwind portal will go off, which kind of works with his curve that is just, looking like Raz next turn potentially. Oh, wow!
Scoundrel's pretty sick as well, actually, yeah.
It's just out of range of Arcanist Immolation Aura.
Yeah. So if it was instead to be Arcanist, Aug Merchant, Fellscream, still comes up a touch short. Wow, that's pretty insane.
He could go Arcanist, Aug Merchant, Immolation, but that's his own board blown up as well.
It's 1 mana short, I think, now, right? With the...
Oh, yeah, my bad.
Yeah, having tested for Counterspell. And this was, I mean, quite clearly at this point, this was the plan that blitzchung was setting up for. By not clearing last turn, he was saying, okay, you're allowed to develop for one more turn because I can go for a big sweep on turn 5 with the Fellscream Blast I imagine he was setting up for. Then he goes for Skull on turn 6, and then he deals with whatever comes after. And it was a good plan, actually, in retrospect. I'm fine with the way that blitzchung sequenced this. He just got really unlucky with a 5 health 4-drop.
Yeah, off the Netherwind. In any case, Alan going to free up hand space for the refreshing spring water. Okay, I suppose this is just gonna end up being combustion or something at the end.
Oof.
Wow. Very refreshed is Mr. Allen here. And the Skull can certainly whiff as well. blitzchung doesn't want to not play Skull this turn, but sometimes he takes another 5 damage to the face if he plays Skull this turn.
So you could start with Illidari Studies first, right? And you could still play the Skull afterwards, but if you get...
Is that good?
Huh. Yes, it is, right? You just Immolation or clear the board and then glide. That's insane.
Job done.
When Give Please played this yesterday, let's be honest, we were kind of tongue-in-cheek saying it probably wasn't good, but it worked out perfectly for him. This one for blitzchung, it's objectively good. It fits perfectly with his mana. He deletes half of Alan's hand and resets the discounts he might have got off of some of those cards. But what happens now is Alan drew Lunacy, and I don't know.
Like, Apexis Blast is inactive. Like, he reached for it instantly, and then I think he realized, hold up, that's not yellow. Let's move on to something else.
Right, he has minions in his deck because of the Glide. Glide is just nuts!
Illegal. Illegally good card.
So it has to be Lunacy here, right?
You'd think so.
Yeah. Okay, we've got a whole new game on our hands, Derek. blitzchung has the Skull back in place, but it needs one more turn before it's outcastable. I think you are okay with taking that turn? Oi, oi, oi. I don't even know what's going on now. There's no way our deck tracker knows what's going on either, so I can't tell
no
you
chance.
what Alan is likely to get. He didn't play any 7-mana spells, so at the very least, the 2 Masks of Cthuans could be in a Grand Slams now.
True. He hadn't played any flows either, right? So they're going to be full cost.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
The thing is, though, he had played Spring Waters, so the card draw for Alan is somewhat limited. Is that Fell Guardians? Not bad.
Not bad.
Board Presence.
Oh man, this is going to be a close one. blitzchung has the Skull of Gul'dan, so his own win condition is going to start coming online rapidly, assuming he gets any decent kind of card draw.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Alan's just saying, send everything to the face, don't give blitzchung minions targets for healing, I guess? It's true that a bunch of 1/2s is not really pressuring blitzchung, but I'm surprised by that.
Those are combo pieces, though. We've seen some pretty lackluster skulls in the past. That could not be better. I guess you save the acrobatics just because you want to actually be able to play both the cards you get to up it to 4 card draw.
Yes, I agree. At this point, if Alan's just pointing spells at your face that aren't even active for minion generation, he is just looking to race you down. So blitzchung is just looking for draw, draw, draw here. In the end, he plays it. And to be fair, I haven't played an OTK Demon Hunter list with acrobatics since last year, it feels like, so I don't necessarily know the best timing.
That's not bad. I mean, if you're going to miss out on card draw, which is obviously what you want, then Glowfly, Fell Guardians, they're some of the better spells.
Yeah, if you don't play Glowfly now, it just gets worse every turn onward, but perhaps Alan's main reason for going Apexis last turn was to corrupt this ring toss, try and hit counter spells, and really starve blitzchung of the card draw, which then gives Alan time to hit his own I don't even know what spells in his deck.
Right.
But good stuff.
Okay, so Ice Barrier is tempting, but it's very possibly not actually worth it just because you're going to die from the damage anyway, so yeah.
Right, yeah. If he took rigged fair game, then you can make the argument that like if those two as a pair, blitzchung has to decide between giving 8 armor or 3 draws, but I don't necessarily even know if he took rigged fair game.
And I think that might actually just be game on the other side with all those reduced. Didn't even need any Mohawks in the end if he didn't want to with just Talented Arcanist. There we go. Closes out the game with the OTK Demon Hunter. Finally able to get there over the finish line. And for Alan, it was a worthy effort, but for the Mage, everything he was doing, even with Deck of Lunacy, it was just far, far, far too slow.
It really wasn't, though, at the beginning. It was the glide that changed everything. Alan had so much gas in hand, and a lot of it was cheap, and wow. I am just never going to underestimate glide again. Give Please was the pioneer, and blitzchung is the first follower. We're going to have a whole cult of glide users in the future, Dark. Mark my words.
Yeah, the paragliders, perhaps. I don't even know what that means, but it's a word that has glide in it, so it's a joke. Alan up still 2 games to 1 here, and with the Demon Hunter out of the way, we are looking at the Mage, Mirror, I believe, and Druid left over for blitzchung. The Mage Mirror, I think, should be pretty close to a mirror, right? I'm just checking how the deviation of Lunacy versus non-Lunacy goes. They're both running Deck of Lunacy in their Mage, both running fairly aggressive builds of the deck as well, without the ice barriers that we saw from Bank Yugi earlier on as well. So just pretty much as close to a mirror as you're going to get.
And it could be a ton of fun, especially after the Lunacy nerf. I feel like it's much more often that the mages can get some pressure online, that if there is one mage with Font of Power and they curve out, they threaten a Pexus for the next turn, the other mage has to consider, do I even have time to play Lunacy? And from there we could see instead a very scrappy back and forth game where the spells are actually pointed at minions possibly. But if not, there's also worlds where they don't get Lunacy but all the spells are pointed at face.
That very possibly also could be the case, because even if one player gets Lunacy at the start, especially now that it's turn 4, that is far from a guaranteed victory. If your opponent goes Lunacy and you go like coin a Pexus Blast face and they don't have an answer, that very often just leads to a win through burn, rather than even worrying about Kodos or anything like that can come down. So I do think there's a lot more to the matchup than initially meets the eye. But for the most part, outside of the Lunacy, we are looking for, well, the other cards you see in hand, in addition to the Incanter's Flow and the Springwater. The Font of Power, I think, is a very crucial card in the matchup, because if you can get a 2-drop, a 3-drop online and it's unanswerable, you know, getting yourself 5 or 6 extra chip damage at the start of the game really does stack up quickly.
Yeah, and there's just so many nutty outcomes off of Mage minions. We just saw, I can't remember the name of the 4-3, so sorry, but Raz is a big one, Jandis is a big one. Even the Confection Elemental is quite strong to give you even more minion generation and keep chugging along. The board presence is not to be underestimated, because I don't think you keep Combustion in this matchup ever. Yeah,
no, I totally agree. And the defensive game plan just overall isn't something that I'm interested in at all for these players. It's as aggressive as possible in the early game, and then following up hopefully when they don't have any minions on board, as you can see with the Mask of Cthulhu. Springwater on the play is a questionable card to keep. Like, it's one of the higher mulligan win rate cards always, but it just doesn't feel good to keep on the play. I want to find the Incanter's Flow. I guess I still want to find Lunacy, even though it costs 4.
Yeah, I agree. I have flip-flopped on this, depending on whether I'm on the coin, depending on whether I have Lunacy or Flow. But of course, the least likely situation for me to keep Springwater is when I'm on the play and I have neither of those. But I totally wouldn't fault people for keeping it just as is, because it's still guaranteed 0 mana draw 2 when turn 4 comes around, and sometimes even better if you do get those cards you're looking for. In the case of blitzchung, he did find the Lunacy. And Alan's a gamer. We're coining Runed Orb, Derek.
Coin Orb? I mean, if he was looking for exactly Incanter's Flow and he just hits it, then sure. Gamers rise up.
Wow. Never in a million years would I have thought to do that, but well, Alan just does things and they work, you know?
What's his secret?
I really don't want that to discount how well he played in the first few games of this series, but this one baffles me.
Yeah, fun fact about Alan, he's never had a thought in his life. He just does things and it happens.
Oh, this is sick. He gets Solarian Cram Session now too. The curve is perfect. All because of the coin.
Yeah, he's holding off on the Solarium, which, yeah, I guess, it's good if you have Deck of Lunacy, obviously, because then all of a sudden the Idol of your Charge and things like that start doing something. But without that, I would rather keep my Apexis and Fonts active.
True. Good catch. And he gets to spend the rest of the mana anyway. Perfectly works out here. But blitzchung, here we go. He's a gamer as well. He's doing the thing.
You do the thing here.
I agree. Left-hand card thing.
And it's
Now
still...
Alan really wants to look for either more burst or the other Font of Power.
Yeah. And Refreshing Spring Water for 3. It sucks to not use that extra mana that you're afforded, but whatever. You take it, and you definitely take double Font of Power. And this is that dichotomy in the matchup that I was talking about. The Lunacy on one side is setting up for very big gains later on, but is it strong enough now? Alan is going to start pushing Damahe to the face. All these minions are going to be doing quite a lot, especially with the Phoenix in play. This is looking scary for blitzchung.
It truly is. And Alan here decided to fit in the mana with another Cram Session and the Fallen Hero instead of playing the Rhyme Tongue. I think it's a small optimization. Yes, you have a bit less health on board, but he really just wants to draw towards Apexis Blast on curve.
And with buff everybody for blitzchung, that is pretty disastrous. Like, it could be good if he gets the right cards to follow up, but for right now, he wishes that Survival was a Grand Slam instead, and he wishes, more than anything, he just had any kind of card draw to go alongside this.
This is not the juice. Blitzchung bows his head for a bit, knows he's in a bad spot, but he's not out of it yet. Even if you play an uncorrupted Ring Toss, now that I say it, that sounds terrible.
I hate it. Thanks.
Brain Freeze? And just wait a bit longer. It really is all just up to the quality of his next two draws. I'm hesitant to say he will have more than that if the hand continues to be this unplayable.
Oh, mate, if this Mask of Cthulhu goes all face, GG. You can just wrap it up right there. It's so likely that Alan will be able to close it out from there. This helps,
Alan
of course.
Running into hand space issues, though. Like, he would love to play the other font here. It looks like he is just playing Brain Freeze to make some more space. Yeah, start with the Spring Water as well. Gets the full back up to 5 mana.
Oh. Is it good at this point? You've played Incanter's Flow. You have 2 of the 3 7-mana spells in hand. I kind of wonder if you'd rather just draw Burn from your deck at this point than random spells.
I kind of agree. And he also just doesn't have any card draw left in hand. So with this 3 mana, I mean, with 5 mana, he has to choose between developing the 3/4 and 1/1 or playing Lunacy. And I kind of want the board presence. Sometimes the Font of Power also just gives you a playable minion. And in that case, maybe you just play the font first so you guarantee don't overdraw.
Really big fan of
Okay.
this. Yeah.
Sure.
Very big fan of this play. That's minions.
You settle. He has to settle.
Yeah.
The hand literally does nothing if he doesn't stick anything. He can Brain Freeze the Phoenix away at least. Sorry, I didn't quite think that the Rhyme Tongue would be this hard to activate. It's frost spells, right?
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I was busy ignoring you.
Used to it. Power Infusion. Better than Sermon here by quite a wide margin. He just wants to stick something, anything, but Devolving Missiles will make quick work of that.
Yeah, the Devolving Missiles really are the kicker here, however you want to go about it.
Alan also going for the safe ordering, I would say, of Combustion first, so you make sure that the missiles will guaranteed put this to 1. You go the other way around, and sometimes one of them is left a 6/9 if you're very unlucky.
Ooh.
With a cherry on top.
He's just
More
getting
stuff.
there with minions.
Yep, more and more minions coming face, and then Mask of Cthulhu, Fireball, because he didn't change his deck, very likely more damage to follow as well. The Aegwin as well, just for +2 spell damage, you're not going to turn your nose up at that. And Piercing Shot just clears a minion, but it's so far from game winning. He needed this to be the Grand Slam. The survival is just not cutting it.
7 mana plus 4. 7 mana Blessing of Kings. How do you feel about that? Yeah, this is really not cutting it. Blitzchung needed to hit one of those card draw spells from his deck. And that's namely all of the 3-cost cards that have gotten transformed into 6. Currently, there are 4 left. What was originally 2 Combustions and 2 Arcane Intellect is what he needed to stay in this. But at the moment, it is far too slow. Alan hits the Apexis Blast.
Oof.
And Blitzchung is running out of time.
Yeah, Varden Fireball.
Yep.
Even Ring Toss here if you don't want to spend the mana right now. Yeah. Disrupt even further. Counterspell. Netherwind Portal. Honestly, rigged fair game. You're kind of looking at it just to get even more card draw.
I think he took the exact 2 you mentioned at first, and that is what makes Blitzchung's life even tougher. So yeah, you throw away the Invigorating, and then 3 cards on the right. Piercing first, and then you decide if you have to siphon the 3-drop from Netherwind. Yes, you do have to siphon the 3-drop from Netherwind.
He got the bird. Someone called Jambray. It made it into GM.
That was there a while ago, too.
Well, I'm paying attention this time.
I can't quite remember. Maybe it was yesterday, I'm sorry. Yeah, Lampy series. In the Mage game, too, he had to think about whether he was supposed to fireball down her face.
Crazy. And now double Fireball in addition to the Mask of Cthulhu. This is the balance of the matchup that I've seen players talk about so much. Is it better, unless you get it right at the start with the Incantus Flow, to even play Deck of Lunacy? If you don't have the card draw, if you don't hit the good cards, stuff like this happens, and then you just lose because look at everything that Alan can point face. This is disgusting.
2 Fireballs to face, and then 2 Apexis Blast next turn. Alternatively, Combust and Apexis this turn gets him a bit more board presence. Because if he pushes 12 plus 7 to face right now, that's 19. Blitzchung is at then 11, which is still 1 off of double Apexis to face. So maybe it is just Combust and 1 Apexis. But you called it. I mean, the Refreshing Spring Water at the start, it's compounding if you're forced to play it before Lunacy. It means it's not in your hand for after Lunacy, and you are drawing far too slow.
Yeah, just proccing it now before it can get buffed by a, I guess, the potential. You just want to lock out Survival of the Fittest off the top. I think it's reasonable to just admit that you ordered things a little bit wrong and just bump into the Samuro there. It obviously wasn't perfect, but it's better than giving them another out.
True. He's still very much in command of the game. Blitzchung is gonna Metamorphose, and I think he's forced to clear,
Yeah.
Oh, man. Alan has all the cards in the world. Blitzchung has currently no Glide, but could he have generated one?
I mean, he could have. Oh my lord.
Aegwin, Apexis, double Fireball next turn. Blitzchung needs Skull into Miracles right now.
Oh.
Wow, he gets the Rhino too, are you kidding me?
So sick. Expendable Performers, one of the better cards. Again, it clears the board, but we can see he's just dead on the other side. And the Deck of Lunacy just doing absolutely nothing here for Blitzchung. To be fair, if he hadn't hit it, it did still feel like Alan would probably have been in the lead. He got off to a decent start with, what was it, Coin into Ruined Orb to follow up with the generated Deck of the generated Incantus Flow, sorry. It was pretty absurd, but he played to that out, he hit it, and then from there on, it was just a slaughter.
It really was. I'm sorry I'm doodling here, Jarek. Like, before you came on for rehearsal today, our producer was telling me that, hey, you didn't use the telestrator at all yesterday. I was like, I didn't really think we had a good spot for it. There weren't too many trade-heavy games, but I found a spot for it today, Jarek. 2 fireballs to the face. That is Alan going to the top 4 tomorrow. Well played, indeed.
Thanks for so beautifully visually demonstrating the way that Alan can close that one out, Gia. But I mean, that's all the visual I need right now. The man, the myth, the legend. It's Alan doing things in style, sailing through to the semi-finals tomorrow. And I think we can agree, just playing some pretty solid Hearthstone throughout there. Like, there was the one, like, decision that changed at the end. It wasn't even like he made a mistake, it's that he changed the way he wanted to approach it halfway through, and it ended up being slightly misordered. But for the most part, loved his approaches. Like with the Rogue against the Demon Hunter, I thought it was inspired, the way he was positioning his minions, getting the maximum amount of damage, stepping the enraged man crit just to get more health on the board, just showing exactly the kind of things that make your opponent's life difficult, disrupting at all points, just led to a clean win.
You love to see it from Alan. I think week 1 going 0-2 for him, or just not getting on stream, was definitely a fluke. Alan is a world-class player. He has 100% proved that. And against a world-class opponent, blitzchung, very, very good and a veteran of the game. Maybe not necessarily his meta. I do think the OTK Demon Hunter play, at the very least, needs to be cleaned up a little bit, but